commissioned after dismissing another top architect's plans as boring, really is a bit special. There's a large multi-lane upper-story swimming pool, cutting-edge sports facilities, a gym, 4 cafes and a multi-use games area. There's a 210-seat auditorium for product announcements and lectures. The whole structure sits atop a so-called plinth of retail and dining spots intended to, in Heatherwick's words, create variety and fascination at a human scale. On the rooftop, behold a 300-meter landscape garden divided into zones including a pause area for quiet contemplation. There's shady wooded spots dappled with pastel wildflowers, lily-covered fish ponds, rustic beehives, and a 200-meter running track commanding peerless panoramic views over London. Inside, a dramatic staircase floats diagonally through what Bjarke Ingels describes as a single confident volume akin to King's Cross Station's magnificent multi-arched concourse. All internal routes are easy and flowing and connected in order to inspire opportunities for chance encounters and foster all-important creativity. Fundamentally, of course, it's an office block, so imagine hundreds of people staring at screens and zoning out in meetings. Hey, at least they get nap pods. The very fabric of the building was chosen in line with Google's so-called Healthy Materials program. This initiative traces its origins back to the early days of Google, when a fretful Larry Page would prowl the office with a handheld particle counter measuring air quality and particulates emanating from the walls and floors. Presently, Google runs a handful of offices across London. Famously, its Victoria outpost has beach huts and dodgem cars, while staff at Google's Covent Garden branch enjoy access to an allotment. This new building, alongside 2 other nearby King's Cross sites being looked at by Google, will unify its UK team on one 7,000-person campus. The centerpiece will be this, the only wholly Google designed and built building outside the US. But hang on a minute, you're probably thinking, don't we all work from home now? At the time of writing, almost all of Google's 118,000 global employees are working in their jammies. CEO Sundar Pichai has signaled he intends this policy to stand until the end of June 2021 at any rate. Because while it's clear the nature of work has probably changed forever, Pichai still has faith in the unique alchemy of in-person collaboration. We firmly believe that being together, having that sense of community is super important for whenever you need to solve hard problems, he told Time magazine. So we don't think the future is 100% remote. We value our offices, we value the culture. Certainly, King's Cross's lunchtime restaurant and bar scene will rejoice when Google's shiny new HQ fills up with well-remunerated young go-getters potentially as soon as next year. Right now, it's still being built. Get a load of those Android logos running up its reinforced concrete core. But ultimately, Google's huge investment in London is a tonic for those Londoners who worry that, since the pandemic, their city has lost its mojo. Well, if anyone can help them find it, what do you think? Are these vast office hulks nothing but dinosaurs from a bygone corporate era? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more hot desking tech content.
All right. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. It's good to be here again this evening. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. According to your respective time zone, I believe you are so delighted to be here. Also, I am glad. I'm delighted to be here. Yes, I already see you introducing yourself from the comment section. Yes, I can see Awa Musa from Kano, Nigeria. I can see Mikamo from Ethiopia. I can see Dominic from Uganda. I can see Aminu from Nigeria. Yes, good evening, good evening, good evening, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, I can see Adamu from Adamawa, Nigeria. Yes, you are welcome. You are welcome. I can see Elizabeth from Rwanda. Yes, I can see Reno from Malawi. Yes, we are glad to have you this evening. That's awesome. Let's keep up the introduction. You are welcome. We are glad to have you on today's Teach4SDGs series. Sustainable greetings to every one of you in your respective location. On behalf of AIIDEV Africa, on behalf of the entire Teach4SDG team, we are saying welcome to today's workshop. So, without doubt, I believe last week's section was such a great and insightful one. We are here again to learn. We are here again to rub minds together, and we are sure that, of course, you are going to be better today than last week. Yes, you'll be better. You keep getting better on a daily basis. So, meanwhile, before we proceed to today's series, before we go into the topic today, as a reminder of feedback, we would like to hear from you. We would like to get feedback from you concerning what you learned last week, your take home last week. Let's have that in the comment section. Kindly type what you gained last week. Let's see you. Yes, let's see what you took home last week. Yes, I can still see you greeting each other. That's nice. That's good. Bridget from Malawi, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, yes, you're welcome. So, let's have a volunteer kindly type what you gained from last week's section. Last week was such a wonderful moment with Miss Deborah. Yes. So, is anybody willing to tell us what he or she learned from last week topic, which is circular economy? Okay, yes, I can see Kamal. It was a very great knowledge. Okay, I can see Aliyu. The training was educative and insightful. Okay, I can see Mangua, minimizing waste. Okay, okay, how I recycle products. That's for Jamil. Nice one. That's good. Yes, let's have it coming. Yes, Jamie is also saying circular economy utilizing the 4 R's. Okay, that's nice. The practice and act of reducing, reusing, and recycling. That's from Moida Mola. Okay, that's cool. Okay, Laukurea. Circular economy is focused on waste elimination. That's nice. I can see Umar. We learned how to prevent ourselves and our pupils from waste resources. Oh, that's nice. Okay, thank you for bringing. Yeah. That's nice. That's nice. So, let me take two more. So Bashiru is saying last week's session, I learned that circular economy is an economy model designed to minimize waste and maximize resources efficiently. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. So thank you for the feedback. We are glad. So here we are again today to learn, to reshape on ourselves, to place ourselves in the proper position. All right. So before we move on, we would like to invite our guest speaker for today, who is already on the call. We really appreciate you for joining us today. Before we bring her on board, we would like to give us a professional bow. And we sincerely want to apologize this evening. We also have Dr. Balogo on the call this evening to facilitate the section, but he is unavoidably absent. He had to take care of one or two things. And luckily for us, he has sent a representative. So we are glad to have Sheyi Olarinde, who is a head from Global Property and Facility International. So we are glad to have you this evening. You're welcome. So who is Sheyi Olarinde? Sheyi Olarinde is a sustainability manager with experience in measuring and documenting an organization's base performance and its environmental impact while evaluating operational processes and its alignment with the organization ESG goals. She is helping organizations achieve their sustainability goals and positioning strategically to measure, report, and reduce emission towards a net zero position. As a green design expert, she is creating awareness around green building design and the financial benefit of investing in developing and or leasing resource efficient green certified building. So I want to see your welcoming emoji in the chat box as we bring up our facilitator this evening. We are glad to have you this evening. We would like to say hello to our participants, uh, our guests.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Olufemi Abioye. Correct. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invite. I hope to have a wonderful time with the team today. I'll just go ahead and applaud, the great work of AIIDEV. I know that it would not have been easy putting training together and bringing together the youths, across Africa and globally. It's a huge task, and we applaud you for raising a voice for climate change and the sustainability development goals. Thank you for the good work they're doing. I want to thank everyone also who has taken time out today to join the meeting, to join the training. You pick one or two things that is going to, change the course of your career or your NGO or your projects or whatever it is you're doing in the SDG space. It's going to be a learning experience for the both of us, both you and I hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that introduction. We sincerely appreciate that. And so we'll be, for the next 40 minutes, we'll be listening to our facilitators. Please do well to get your writing material ready, get ready to engage and to learn this evening. So it's an honor to have you, man. So for the next 40 minutes, you have the floor. Our participants are joining right from YouTube. So feel free to read their chat and get engaged with them. Thank you, ma.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Once again, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I believe I have 40 minutes, and to be honest, I hope I'm able to cover all that I have prepared for today's session, but I hope we'll be able to cover quite a bit. So today we're speaking majorly on green economy and sustainable construction. As a green building design expert, we know that across Africa, especially in the global south, it's a new field, and we in this part of the world in Africa, I'd say we are late. We are joining in late. We're joining the global north, to integrate sustainability measures into the real estate industry and the building industry. But I mean, never late than never, right? Now that we are starting to take action.
A little bit. Sorry, ma'am. Please, can you enable full screen for your presentation so that we can have that slide? Yes.
Is this better now?
Not yet.
Okay, it's enabled from my end. Let me just see what's going on. Hold up. Okay, please confirm you can see the full screen now.
Not yet.
Oh.
You can use maybe you click on the slideshow, then the option should be there.
Okay, I think this is taking longer than it. Let me try the slideshow. Yeah.
Yes, from beginning.
Okay.
You can just click.
Yes, I have clicked. So it's
I
actually
think
showing the full screen from my end. I
you
don't know
have a
why.
full screen.
Yeah, I have the full screen on my device
Sorry,
here.
Ma. You might have to stop sharing and reshare your screen
Okay.
for that to be effective.
Okay, let me try again. Okay, I think this is taking longer than expected. Let's just proceed. I can't seem to, it's actually showing on the full screen on my device here. So can I just continue? Hopefully along the line, I'll figure it out. Hello, Femi.
Yes, we can proceed. You can proceed, please.
All right. Apologies for this. I just hope you bear with me. Okay, so all right. So today we're just going to touch on green economy and what green economy is, what the economic model is, what the postulation is, what the paradigm around green economy is, and how it relates with sustainable development, that is sustainable construction. So we're going to zoom in our conversation in the real estate sector, and we're going to talk about green design, we're going to talk about green materials, I'm going to talk about strategies to develop a sustainable green building, right? So just to run through our agenda for today, we're going to define green economy. We're going to talk about the benefits of sustainable construction in driving the green economy. We're also going to talk on the principles of sustainable construction. We're going to view a few business cases, as well as touch on key strategies of integrating sustainability into development, into building developments, right? Okay, so before we proceed into talking in full about green economy, I just want to touch a bit, take us back to our secondary school knowledge about what economy is, right? Femi, just confirm to me, please. Can we have the attendees answer questions? Is it possible?
Well, I believe they can, only that we'll have to read from the charts. So they can type on YouTube, we'll pick up their response from YouTube. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'll just proceed to talking about what economy is, right? In any country or state, it's the state that is in terms of production, right? It's the state of a country or a region in terms of production and consumption of goods and services. Practically, we know it as managing scarce resources to meet our present economic needs, food needs, clothing needs, shelter needs, hospitality needs, and the list goes on, right? We know that there's this scarceness of the resource, the scarcity of resources is a phenomenon in every economy, right? Every economy has to look for efficient ways to maximize resource, especially in the production, in the manufacturing and production sector, right? So we know that we have different components of your economy, right? We have different components of the economy. For every economy, you have the real estate sector, different sectors of the economy. We have the real estate sector. We have the hospitality sector, that's the hotels and the likes. We have the agricultural sector, right? They are all dependent on the extraction of raw materials. They are all dependent on input of certain materials to be able to provide the goods or the services that contribute to economic growth, right? We also have the import and export trade of materials. An example is the export of diamond, the export of gold, the export of fossil fuel to produce diesel and fuel, right? We have also the export of food materials. So the point I'm trying to bring out here is the economy thrives on raw material. There's a very huge interconnection between raw material extraction and economic growth, right? So for every economy to thrive, we need to understand how to be able to collect or extract materials sustainably in order to ensure that the materials that are being extracted are not depleted, because we know that these materials are not finite, right? They are not finite materials. There's no, reserve that ensures that, every generation will be sorted out, right, in terms of production. So there has to be a different model introduced to the current economic system, the current economic model, the current model of running our economy, right, to ensure that we provide the need of today without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs, right? And that's where the conversation about sustainable production, sustainable manufacturing, sustainable design when it comes to building, sustainable consumption, right, comes into play. And now we've noticed that over the years, if you look at the whole industrial era and how civilization came into being and how technology came into being and how all of these factors interconnectedly influences the current economic status of each country or state, we see that there has been a model. I was glad to hear that we talked on circular model last year, which the last training session, which means that we've touched a bit on the different models that the economy thrive on. Currently, we know that most economies, both at the global north and global south, thrives on the linear model, right? Which is the take and dispose, take and waste model. There is no take back system. There is no regenerative system. There's no system that ensures that there is a circular flow of resources to ensure that the level of wastage of resources is minimized, right? And that's the conversation around circular economy. And that's where green economy comes into being. Green economy is a new model. It suggests an emphasis on ecological and economic dimensions of whatever solution that we are providing. A basic example is a youth who wants to go into the agricultural sector and start farming, right? The green economy model focuses on the ecological dimension of the food provision solution that you want to provide, right? And then the economic dimension. Of course, we know that sustainability thrives on balancing economy with the impact of the economic activity on the people, as well as the impact of the economic activity on the environment. That is the whole idea of sustainability. Sustainability simply means balancing all the three frameworks to ensure that no one is suffering, at the stake of the other. The environment is not suffering at the stake of economic growth, and the people as well are not suffering at the mercy or at the stake of economic growth. So UNEP defined green economy explicitly. Talked about the UNEP definition of green economy sort of integrates social goal, right? It incorporates explicitly social goal into the economic and ecological dimension of solution. So this time around, let me just go directly to that slide, right? Green economy touching on not just on the ecological dimension, not just which is the environmental dimension, not just on the economic dimension, but rather also on social inclusivity, on social goals. So the green economy is one that results in improved human well-being, right? Not just economic, not just financial, not just the financial bottom line, but the human bottom line, the human footprint, the well-being of the people, and social equity. I'm going to show you an image that fully demonstrates what social equity is, right? It is not equality. Social equity is not equality. Social equity is not financial stability. It's not financial equality. It's equity. It means fairness. It means fairness. And we'll take a few examples of how, some states in the global north has sort of infused social equity into different aspects of the economy. So the idea for green economy is significantly reducing environmental risks, ecological scarcities, as well as balancing out social goals, social inclusivity, and social equity. So if we take a few steps back and try to assess the definition of sustainability, would say that green economy equal directly to what sustainability is all about, right? It talks on environmental balance, eliminating environmental risk. You can see from this diagram that we say low carbon growth, right? Growth that minimizes, that has lesser carbon footprint, and then resource efficiency, as well as social inclusivity. Okay, so take a look at this first image that was displayed on your screen. Just soak it in. You see people moving around, you see high-rise buildings, and you see trees. I'm going to ask you a question. You see list of, okay, safety, healthy, inclusivity, smartness of the city, productivity, efficiency, equitability, sustainability, responsiveness, as well as resilience. Okay, so now green economy as a phenomenon focuses at addressing certain types of crises, right? The green economy seeks to resolve 3 critical crises facing the world today. One is a socio-political crisis. Another is the economic crisis. Of course, you know the whole conversation around scarcity of resources, the whole conversation around inflation, the whole conversation of export levies, the whole conversation around regulations when it comes to the economic activity, the whole conversation around taxes and levies from the government. It's a huge crisis that we're experiencing economically. Some economics are actually suffering. So some economies in Africa are actually suffering. They have to then identify which sectors do they have sufficient resources in so that they can then build capacity. We can see Dubai. Dubai had a lot of environmental issues. They did not have sufficient water. They were located in a desert, which means the agricultural sector required huge amount of investment to sort of thrive. And then you can see how Dubai had transformed, and Saudi Arabia transformed their economy to totally dependent on tourism. That is one example of identifying inefficiencies of resources and then solving certain economic crises. And the ecological crisis. Now, the idea with the ecological crisis is that if well identified and if proactively addressed, can solve all 3 crises. So it is a driver, ecological crisis, and identifying all the risks in the environment and putting in strategies to solve those risks will automatically address economic crisis and also address socio-political crisis, right? So transitioning to a green economy is not solely about greening. It's not just about planting trees. It has to start from the leadership. It has to start from the government. There have to be regulations put in place. There have to be policies put in place. There have to be structures. There have to be investments, financial investment, capital investment put in place. There have to be incentives by the government put in place to drive the growth of the green economy. And the green economy is the circular economy. So we are saying we want to transition from linear economy to a new model, which is the circular economy. What frameworks do we need to put in place? What structures does each government need to identify and put in place? What policies do we need to put in place? What incentives do we need to put in place? What sort of investment can we put in place to ensure that we implement the circular economy within all our economic arms and sectors? So that's pretty much the conversation around what we're going to talk about today. I'll try and speed up because I'm dwelling so long on each slide. So this is a picture of what social equity looks like, right? The first picture talks about equality. You can see both the father and I assume the 5-year-old son and maybe the 2-year-old son are both trying to view the game. They're trying to watch over a fence to view the game. And you can see that equality is good, right? Equality has everybody sorted. There is a provision for a support for them to view. But equity, on the other hand, identifies the specific need of each strata, of each category of the society, and provide the adequate resources, meet the needs of those specific needs. So for example, a basic example is in an organization that want to, integrate the green economy model into their practices. They would identify the marginalized society, right? They will identify individuals who are marginalized, groups that are marginalized, individuals who come from poor backgrounds, individuals who do not have the same privilege, who do not have the same benefits, or what's the word now? Or individuals who are marginalized, for short, right? They will identify them and then allot to them the required resources for them to thrive in the society. Another example is people with disabilities, right? Ensuring that you're not paying someone who has, who doesn't have any disability, the same remuneration that you are paying someone with disabilities, because the needs of that person will be way higher than someone with abilities. So it differs per scenario, but this is just a perfect example of what social equity is all about. So the green economy focuses on integrating social equity, not just focusing on the environment, not just on the financial bottom line, but ensuring that the people are put first as well. The needs of the people are put first. The needs of the people are identified, not provided generically or generally, but specific needs provided to specific stratas, right, of the society. Okay, so we'll just go into this image that sort of explains what the green economy and the whole green economy model focuses on. We've touched on human well-being, the human and social capital, enhancing social equity and fair burden sharing, and then economy, which is improving resource efficiency. Of course, the whole idea of economics, right, is ensuring that scarce resources are well and efficiently deployed for whatever use. And then the ecosystem, which is the environment, ensuring that the environment is resilient enough. Systems are put in place to protect the environment, protect biodiversity, protect life underwater, protect nature, while the economy also thrives and the people also thrive. So just to provide a bit of clarity, what is the difference between a green economy and a circular economy? I would like you to drop in the chat. I cannot see your responses, but I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think is the difference between green economy and circular economy. Because of our time, I'll just go ahead and explain what green economy is. Green economy seeks to balance out the 3 ESG frameworks: society, the people, the environment, the ecology, and then the economy, right? It's a balance between all 3. Circular economy is a regenerative development strategy for economic growth that focuses on restoration. So here we have identified that resources are scarce. Resources are finite. They are not infinite. Resources deplete. Now, how do we restore resources that are collected from nature? When you go to the ocean to harvest fish for sale, how do you ensure that you go and ensure the eggs, you are grooming eggs of fishes? You have a nursery where you are grooming eggs of fishes to replenish what has been taken out of nature. That is what circular economy is all about. It's ensuring there's a circular flow of resources. It's identifying inefficiencies, wastages in a process and eliminating that waste, and ensuring that that waste is used, is converted as some form of resources, for another form of production. So circular economy is providing circularity, right? While green economy says ESG, there has to be a balance between all these 3 frameworks. Now, what are the components of a green economy? This list is inexhaustible, right? We have renewable energy. I have now zoomed into the real estate sector. So we're going right now into sustainable buildings and green building development, right? So green building is one of the components of a green economy, right? Why? Because buildings produce 40% of the global carbon emissions that we experience in the world today. 40% of global carbon emissions are emitted from buildings and from the building industry, right? So it is impossible to fight global warming without addressing buildings, without addressing what goes on in the building sector, right? What goes on from resource extraction, raw material extraction, to production, to construction, to the end of life of the building. Buildings contribute to global warming, for short, right? So renewable energy is another component. Sustainable extraction and production and consumption is another component. Clean transportation, we know all about that. Electrical vehicles are now being deployed across states. I've heard some states, some countries are even completely eliminating diesel-fueled vehicles. And then sustainable waste management, water management. This list, like I said before, is inexhaustible. The list is endless, right? So now what, I have touched on this before, what is the relationship between natural resources and GDP growth, right? GDP is completely dependent on natural resources, right? Many economists have come to see the natural resources as a productive input or as a factor that influences productivity of any of other productive inputs in the generation and sustainability of the country's economic activity. For sure, to simply put, natural resources, GDP, the GDP of a state is completely dependent on the natural resource reserve of that state. So here is a table that sort of depicts the 10 global environmental performance risks of different countries, right? So there are metrics that have been measured to get this rating. And you can see where our beloved country falls in, right? When it comes to environmental health, when it comes to vitality of the ecosystem, when it comes to climate change performance and our carbon emissions and tracking and measuring and offsetting our carbon emissions, we're doing poorly. We have other states there. And they're not eating, whenever I take trainings and people ask me, well, Africa just contributes about 44% of global emissions. Why are we so sort of being painted as Africa is not working, Africa is not performing, Africa is not advancing circular economy? The whole idea of our contribution to offsetting or mitigating climate change is that we are the ones who bear the most impact of climate change, right? We suffer, we contribute the less, but we bear most of the brunt of it. So that is why countries across Africa, I have colleagues across Kenya, South Africa, and then when we have our sustainability meetings, we say, we need to put our foot in the game, we need to get to taking action. We should not wait until we begin to experience a high level of flooding. Lagos State has been, I think it said by 2040, Lagos State, half of Lagos State will completely flooded. You know, those are projections of environmental hazards that might occur if we don't begin to take action. Now let's go into building constructions, right? We know that the construction industry, like we mentioned earlier, completely depends on raw materials. Look at the table, look at the diagram just beside the write-up. You can see that materials, 40% of materials that are deployed for building constructions are being extracted. So 40% of global resources are being dedicated for building constructions. Now 35% of global energy are consumed by buildings. Now 5% of water are used globally in buildings. And of course, investment. Now, of course, all of this contributes to the construction. All of this are expended during construction, during usage and maintenance, as well as renovation and demolition of the building. And what are the outputs, right? Emissions to the air and water, waste, noise pollution, social inequality, social inequity, financial returns. Okay, so here's just a breakdown of how buildings contribute to global warming, right? And how materials as well. This diagram also shows the breakdown of materials, the different materials that are deployed in the building industry, and their different contribution globally, right? Globally, right, 38% of wood is used in buildings. Still, 21% of global steel reserve is used in buildings, and the list goes on and on. So we can see that the building construction industry consumes 40% of natural resources and has a high stake in climate change as well as economic growth. Okay, so talking about the environmental impact of building constructions, we all know when we say the negative environmental impacts of any economic activity, we sort of expect that carbon emissions would be, you know, first on the list. And we can see the different categories of emissions that are being generated from construction activities. We have the CO2, we have methane, we have nitrous oxide, we have the F gases, right? And all of these are emitted throughout the life cycle of a building, not just at the point or at the manufacturing stage, when tiles are being manufactured, where roofing sheets and steel rods and iron rods are being manufactured. No, even the construction stage, we have a high level of emissions during construction projects. Some construction projects run between 5 to 10 years. Some construction projects even spans longer, right? And every single activity that goes on during construction also emits one level of greenhouse gas. Now, we have categorized emissions in the building sector to embodied emissions as well as operational emissions. Embodied emissions are all the emissions associated with the manufacturing and the construction of building materials, right? And then operational emissions are emissions that are generated while operating and running the building. Once the building has been commissioned and people are beginning to use the building, we have operational emissions emanating from diesel generators powering the building, and as well as waste, right? Waste that are generated from buildings and that end up in landfills. I mean, you can say that 99% of waste are generated from buildings, right? And they end up in landfills and they emit methane. Okay, so here is just a diagram of the different greenhouse gases emissions across different sectors. I can share this slide with us in case we need to go through it later. Okay, so I'll just speed up the conversation because, like I said, we have, oh my goodness. Okay, so what does carbon have to do with the built environment? We've touched on this already. The built environment is the single highest contributor to global carbon emissions. I'm not going to dwell so much on this page because of our time. Now, how do we address the issue of carbon emissions and resource inefficiencies experienced in the real estate industry, in the building sector? So there is no standard definition to what a green building is, right? It's a efficiently designed, right, and efficiently operated building, to put for short. A green building should typically reduce energy to a significant level. A green building should significantly reduce carbon emissions, as well as water use, as well as materials, and also including all the materials that will be used to service the building throughout its life cycle, right? So we're looking at between 20% to 80% of resource wastage elimination in a green building. That is what a green building should do. Now, we know that the World Green Building has developed a whole life carbon vision, right, to decarbonize the built environment by 2050. It has identified critical areas that can be incorporated, critical strategies that can be incorporated into the building that would reduce the building's operational carbon as well as embodied carbon. So it's starting from preventing. For embodied carbon, like I mentioned before, it starts from completely preventing the production of that carbon in the first place. So reduction is one way to go, but preventing carbon from being offsetted has been proven to be more effective, right? Eliminating any form of waste or pollution from a manufacturing process has proven to be more effective in minimizing and lowering carbon footprint. Now, also planning for the future, compensating for residual emissions, and the list is endless. I'm not going to dwell so much on this slide as well, but I'll go ahead and ask us, right? From my little definition of what a green building is, I haven't gone into details. I would like to ask you, which do you think out of this is a green building? Is it A, is it B, C, D, E, F, G, H, or I? Just take a look at the buildings. I'm so sorry I cannot share my screen. Let me try again. But I think, Femi, you can just tell me their responses while I sort of try to see if I can.
No problem. Let's have, dear participant, let's have your responses to that question. Yeah, so we have the building right there. So which one is the green building? Okay. Okay, Nelson is saying C.
C.
Nelson said C is the green building.
Okay, tell me what features in C. What features do you see in C?
So Nelson, can you tell us what feature do you see in C? Desmond, I think Desmond is a politician. He said Desmond shows A and E. Desmond shows A and E. Rebecca said C. Manasseh said C. Timileyin chose A and C. Top score E. Richard A and E. We have Gloria C. Sulaiman C. Timothy C. Mercy C.
I think pretty much everyone is going for C. Okay.
A lot of people actually chose C.
I would like to know, if you don't mind, just tell me what feature is C.
Okay, so dear participant, what is the feature you see that make you choose that option of yours? So let's have your comment. Virtually everybody is now on C. I hope we are not playing keyboard. Yeah, so we have C.
So C is the winner. Okay, great.
C is the winner.
What if I tell you that you are all correct?
Wow. Okay, I think I have a response here. C is a modern building efficiently built, but it has flower around for ventilation. So I think that's a response from Afri. Let me try to get the name.
Avery is correct for giving that reason. It's a modern building. It has good enough ventilation, good enough access for ventilation for free flow of air into the building. And it also has some landscape. So yes, it passes for a green building. What about B? B looks like a 1,000 unit, multi-story building. It looks like the Dubai high-rise, hotels. I can imagine even more than 1,000 rooms could possibly fit into that structure. And of course, it is also a green building, right? Take a look at A and D as well. D has solar panels. D is it looks like a 6 to 7 floor high-rise story building. It has solar panels. So what that means is that it is not completely dependent on non-renewable energy. So it can also pass for a green building. Well, E looks like, a house covered in a forest. I mean, people might be living here, but it looks more like a zoo. But can it pass for a green building as well? Of course it can. All right. Of course it can pass for a green building, right? We don't know what that building is used for. So we can see good expanse of greenery. We can see there might be a lake somewhere around. We can see that they have not allowed the building construction to in any way, kill the current ecosystem in that space. I can assure you that some level of plant life, animal life is thriving in that, location, if you agree with me. So, of course, it should be, on every level, the top scorer for a green building. But that is not the only requirement. Remember, we said that, there has to be a balance between economics, which is the building. There has to be a balance between the people. So how do we know that it's a green building if the people in there are suffering? So green building caters to the needs of the people, the well-being and the health of the people, while also meeting the need for shelter, as well as preserves, the ecosystem around it. That's pretty much, there has to be a balance between all three, right? And then look at F. We cannot eliminate F. Though, yes, it looks, very cluttered. It looks like 3 or 4 buildings put together. In fact, 5 structures, high-rise structures put together. There's limited flow of air, for sure. We can see just a few grasses. But we cannot completely eliminate, F structures from being green. We don't know the features that are integrated to the building. The same applies for H. You can see solar panels on the residential estate, I and G. So that's why I said everybody is correct. You cannot physically assess a building exteriorly and say, oh, this is a green building and this is not a green building. You have to assess the features, right? Technological features, design features, energy performance metrics that has been integrated, energy component of the building, right? The cooling system of the building, the building fabric as well, the materials that has been used at the exterior of the building, the greenery around the building. All of these are being assessed, to certify a building as green. Okay, so let's proceed very quickly. We've not even gotten half of the way, but I'm going to just rush through, right? Permit me, forgive me. I'm going to be very fast. I'm going to try and speak very fast. Okay, so now how do we ensure that we integrate green features into buildings? First is through sustainable design. Yeah, sustainable design and reuse and retrofit. So that reuse and retrofit is ensuring that the design that has been made by the architect has to be reusable. So in case I want to convert my building from a church or from an office space to a hotel, that structure doesn't have to be demolished. I can retrofit it, I can recycle, I can repurpose, I can carry out urban renewal if it's a whole district and say, you know what, I'm going to change this structure to become, this structure. And that's where you talk about historical preservations, where you want to, sort of enhance the scenery and the tradition and the culture of a community. But you don't want, because a building is out of date or doesn't look modern, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be completely demolished, because a lot of wastage would go into the process of demolition. And now you can see I've touched on repurposing and recycling of materials. Also, compact shape and form. So the compact shape and form of a building, the buildings that are designed to be compact and have a bit of square or rectangular form. That's sort of what I wish I had pictures, but I just had to put a lot, on this step. Have more capacity to be repurposed, and that's why the compact shape buildings. So what that means is that you can just take a building and leave the structural elements in the building, the beams, the columns, the concrete, the reinforced concrete slabs, and take out the curtain walls. You can take out the dividers, you can take out the partitioning walls and repurpose your space. You don't have to necessarily demolish a whole building because you want to convert from one use to another. Now, also the durability and flexibility of the materials that you are using to develop that building. How durable is the material? What is the life cycle? What's the lifespan of the material? Can the material last full term for the whole life cycle of the building? Of course, you know that the life cycle of a building, according to World Building, is about 50 years. So if I tile my building, will I need to retile the building in 10 years? Or can that tile last for the whole 50 years throughout the life cycle of the building? How durable are the window fixtures? How durable are the AC fixtures? Durability considerations in selecting materials also enhances, the sustainability of a building. Then having a regenerative design, efficient construction, modular design, I touched on this before, lightweight construction, sustainable material deployment, and ensuring that materials are sourced locally, barely imported, ensuring that you are designing for the people and you're not completely importing your design. We're going to go to that in previous slide. And then looking at the longevity of the building. So sustainable design pretty much refers to a design that creates a healthy living environment while aiming to minimize negative environmental impact, minimizing energy consumption, and also the use of human resources. So sustainable architecture is reflected in a building materials, construction method, resource use, and the design. Right, I'm going to go straight to challenges to architects. You have architects in the house. What are the features that you can integrate into your design to convert your building from a contemporary, normal, traditional building to a sustainable building? It's most times less expensive to design green build green than to design a traditional building. So most people say, oh, what's the cost of building green? It's more expensive. There's huge capital, initial capital that you need to. It's not true. It's because people have not, designed proactively what they want to achieve with, that building. Right, I'm going to go straight to this picture. If we look at this design, it's called the passive design strategies. There are certain features I want us to identify together. These features are features that, transform a building from being a contemporary normal building to a to a green building. First, we know that, okay, let me start with the previous, yeah. First, we know that we have to optimize the building orientation. Most designs and buildings developed today do not optimize the direction of the sun, right? When your building is designed in such a way that it harnesses solar and solar lighting pattern, the flow, the pattern of and the direction of the sun, it's going to experience a huge capital and energy costs, a huge capital and requirements in energy, rather. That means it will need more and bigger cooling systems to cool the building, because the building will be susceptible to allowing heat. There will be free flow of heat into the building. We talk about bioclimatic design. Bioclimatic designs are designs that harness the temperature of the exterior area where the building is located. So if the building is located in a cold region, for example, how can you harness your exterior, the temperature of that location, to the good of the building, to ensure that your energy costs and your energy demand and your energy consumption is drastically reduced? So a building that is orientated properly would consume less energy automatically. So we all know that the sun, of course, rises on the east, right? Rises on the west and sets on the east. Rises on the east and sets on the west. So what that means is that the east part of the building should always be completely covered, if possible. If you look at this building, you can see that the window is facing the west and the sun is going towards the east. So what that means is that the sun is setting. Look at where the sun is setting. The sun is setting on the west, right? So it means that the east direction, the eastern orientation of the building will take the brunt of heat transmission during the day hours. So architects that are aware about this would orientate their building to ensure that they have less windows positioned on the eastern part of the building, and more on the northern and southern orientation, and a much lesser also on the west, because the sun sets on the west, so the heat rays would have reduced, the heat intensity would have gone down when the sun is setting. So you can have good enough windows on the west, but on the east, if possible, completely eliminate the windows you have there, so as to reduce the heat gain coefficient of that building. And that's one way to optimize energy, because you require less cooled air in the space, and you wouldn't need to run your generators 24 hours of the day to cool your building. That's one strategy. Another strategy is, let me go back to the first one, is free flow of air, right? Oh my goodness, I'm exhausted my time. Femi, how many minutes do I have more so I can just sort of rush up?
Yes, let's just have 10 minutes more.
Okay, so by 6:11, I'd round up. Okay, so
thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you. So another concept is good ventilation and free flow of air. If you look at this design, you can see that there is sort of a window put in the atrium area of the building, allowing air that comes in from the windows to escape from the roof. Of course, you know that the hot air goes to the roofing area. It sort of evaporates, it sort of rises to the roofing area. So if there's an opening on the roof, if you look at the olden day houses, they have this feature integrated at the upper part, especially if the walls are high, maybe 5 meter or 4 meter high wall, tall wall. They put some form of opening at the tip, at the top part of the wall, so that there can be free flow of air, and there will be the space would not necessarily need mechanical cooling. And also harnessing this same free flow of air at evening hours. We know that at evening hours, the sun has gone, there's cool air flowing. So when the cool air is flowing, leaving particular openings from the window and from the topper part of your walls allow for free flow and rise of warm air to the ceiling. Of course, you can explore solar power and absorb solar power during the high intensity solar periods, right? Which is between say 11 to say 3 p.m. Install solar power. Then the walls with high thermal mass allows for the absorption of heat during the day. What does that mean? We should integrate spaces that can be controlled by a user. So the idea of having a VRF system, I'm going into details. The idea of having a VRF cooling system is such that if I'm in the sitting room, I can control the temperature of my space. We shouldn't necessarily have to experience the same cooling temperature. I can control the temperature of my space, and that automatically translates to my own personal well-being. In a commercial space, the ability for each space user to control the temperature also reduces the cost of powering the building at the same temperature. Let's assume you are cooling at 14 degrees Celsius now. The whole space, some people will be very cold, some people will enjoy it, but that does not allow for thermal comfort of the user of the building. And also, it impacts on your energy costs because you need to power that equipment for the period that you are powering. You're turning on the AC, and that automatically increases your energy costs. Automatically, it increases your carbon footprint. So allowing diversity and flexibility in your space also significantly reduces the environmental impact as well as the economic impact, right? I have also touched on optimizing the site potential. Sustainable energy use in the building is critical to ensure that a building is operated sustainably, not dependent on fossil fuel. A building that is not completely dependent on fossil fuel can be classified as a green building. So you cannot give a building that is completely dependent on fossil fuel or that is completely powered by generator cannot be called a green building. It's not possible. In fact, in the IFC EDGE standard, you need to demonstrate a certain percentage that has been diverted from renewable power. You have to show that, okay, 40% of my power consumed in my building is powered strictly by solar panels. And then they give you the EDGE Advanced Green Building Certification, right? Optimizing material usage, space, effective operational and maintenance practices, enhancing indoor air quality. We've touched on that. We've touched on, let me go straight to this. We touched on the high heat island reduction. We've touched on this. We've touched on enhancing the direction of the sun and using that to your benefits, right? We've touched on high performance windows. What material, what type of windows are you using? We have smart glass now, smart glasses that they are thermally efficient and they change from transparent to translucent based on the intensity of the sun and light from the exterior environment, right? So we have all of those. We have thermally efficient building. We have double glazed building. Double glazed glasses that can reduce the absorption of heat from the environment, thereby reducing your need for cooling and reducing your energy cost. Now, let me go straight to materials, sustainable materials. We have a long list. Sustainability will always tell you, procure your building materials locally. Avoid scope 3 emissions, which is the emissions of having to import your materials, right? If you can source locally, that can give you a great point to achieving a green building. Materials like bamboo, materials like locally sorted sand, materials, some people you'll be surprised. Some people are importing sand, you'll be surprised. Some people are importing bamboo to use here in Nigeria. Some people are importing copper, and we have all of these materials locally, right? So sourcing locally also supports with reducing your carbon footprint in a building because it has offsetted the travel emissions, that's your scope 3 emissions. Now, here are a few examples of your sustainable materials. We've touched on bamboo. We also have reclaimed and recycled steel. We know that now there's an innovation where periwinkle shells are integrated into concrete mix, and they have been proven to be their tensile strength to be way stronger than just when you use only iron rods. So people are sort of transitioning, some people who trust the technology now are sort of transitioning from buying expensive steel to exploring waste, right? Which is a waste from the food industry. That's the periwinkle shell. Is a waste from the food industry that has now been upcycled and repurposed for building purposes. Another is recycled plastic. We know that there are some buildings that integrate plastic into the bricks. We now have bioplastic. We have casting. Okay, then I'm just going to run through this. Femi, I can send this to you. We have precast concrete slabs. Precast concrete.
Yes, no, ma'am. Well done. So you can still extend to 625. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, 625. All right. Thank you. I should be able to close out by then. Okay, so touching on precast concrete slab, the benefit of precast concrete slab is that they use lesser consumption when it comes to materials. They consume lesser cement and lesser sand, of course, lesser water. So it is different from when you develop your reinforced concrete slab on site, which most people trust, most real estate developers trust, because they can verify the quality and the structural stability of that slab. But it consumes more materials, increases their carbon footprint, and as well increases their cost of development, right? So we have identified that precast concrete slab is a very sustainable option as opposed to the traditional reinforced on-site developed concrete slabs. Okay, and before I leave, this precast concrete slab in some countries like China are already being used to develop modular buildings. There are innovations that will blow your mind. There are innovations that will blow your mind. There are buildings that they build in one day. They have already developed the parts, the walls, they've collapsed it into a box, and they just deploy it to the site and then they erect it. You'll be surprised at the technology. And what all of this innovation sort of helps to do is it reduces our dependency on the raw materials. So lesser raw materials are being extracted from source, and it doesn't compromise the ability of the future generations to build shelter for themselves as well. So the lesser materials we consume, and the more we are able to reuse the current buildings without having to go back and extract limestone, having to go back and extract iron ore and say, okay, we're going to create and produce fresh materials. We can recycle steel. Of course, there's a structure just beside my office here that's because of the Ministry of Environment, I think, no, Ministry of Water Resources. They complained that that property was developed on water line, right? So they had to completely demolish the building. That building was developed with clay bricks. It's a completely sustainable building. Now, the benefit of using materials that are flexible, like clay bricks and the others, is that you wouldn't necessarily have to break and destroy that construction before you can repurpose it. So imagine if they didn't use clay bricks, they would have had to break down the whole structure, right? So of course, there will be some level of wastage, but the level of wastage will be reduced when you use materials that can be easily repurposed, materials that are fitted, that there are some modular structures that you just keep. There's a particular type of cement brick. It's mixed with soil and some materials, and bale, is mixed with a bit of some materials, and it is developed strictly for walls, right? But it's constructed in a form of it's keyed. I don't know how to explain it. It's keyed, so you can loosen the building, you can remove one by one each block without having to break, and you can reconstruct back, you can re-erect it back. Those are innovations that has been identified as sustainable because it reduces the waste footprint, right? Recycled plastic, we've touched on that. Now, insulation, I don't know if I've touched on insulation. reclaim steel and the likes. In this page is the most critical when it comes to this green building sustainable design. Insulation is one of the critical components of green designs because it is, like we touched on, the well-being and thermal comfort, indoor air quality, and the likes. Insulating a building to protect it from the weather condition of the external environment is critical. Why? Because the thermal comfort of the users is paramount. Of course, they would not stay in the building if they don't feel comfortable, right? If the place is too hot or too cold, that building is practically useless because nobody wants to sit in a building. Imagine you are sitting in a building and you are sweating profusely. You would find comfort. So thermal comfort is critical, to building green buildings, right? And that is where the conversation of insulation comes in. So how the level of insulation automatically impacts the thermal comfort of the building. Now, for buildings that are not being mechanically cooled, it is best to design the structure in such a way that there is free flow of air, either through windows or through the atriums that we talked about, or openings around the walls. I'm so sorry we might not be able to go through all those designs. In fact, I wasn't able to put as much case studies as I wanted to. There's a university in Ghana that was designed by a friend of mine, Suarez, and that it was designed to meet the thermal requirement of blacks because 99% of the people who use building, well, let me not assume, maybe 70% of users of the building are blacks. And we on this part of the world, we do not need to be in a space that is cold at 2 degrees Celsius, right? We are comfortable with 22 degrees Celsius and maybe 18 or 16 at the most, right? But you see that most buildings are fitted with cooling capacities beyond that, which expends our energy and creates a lot of waste in the system. So he designed the university in such a way that the walls were artistically perforated, and this South African design, colored, the exterior was painted with bright colors, and what using bright colors like white and yellow and pink does to your building is that it bounces back heat rays, right? It's just the way they say black absorbs heat and white, reflects it off. It bounces it back. So when you paint your building white and then or yellow or a bright and shiny color, the heat gain coefficient would reduce and your cooling demand automatically comes down. So allowing for free flow of air for buildings that are naturally ventilated and for buildings that that are mechanically cooled or ventilated, you then ensure that your insulation is properly taken care of. And we have different forms of insulation, right? We have the polyurethane, the expansion foams, we have the what's it called now? The fiber wool. We have all sorts of materials that are used in the construction industry for insulation. Here is one. Now, all of these materials are produced from plastic. Most of the insulation materials are produced with plastic. The fiber wool produced with one form of plastic, polyurethane, polystyrene, all of them are poly plastic. And what happens at the end of life of that material? They go into the landfill, they introduce, hard metals into the soil, and the whole conversation around our health and the impact of plastic on the environment. So sustainable design sort of encourages the use of plant-based polyurethane, right? All of this readily available in the market, but most developers who are unaware of the impact of the building on the environment and the people would go for the plastic-based insulation, right? So we have options. We have natural options. We have a more sustainable building materials that can be deployed and used in place of the hazardous ones. Talking about toxins, yes, this is the hempcrete I was talking about, that you can just file away the surface and then you collect your block and repurpose it. The list is endless. I mean, smart glass windows, we've talked about it. I'm sorry I didn't get pictures to put there. Yes, we've talked about shorter travel distance to reduce your upstream emissions, which is ensuring that your building materials are locally sourced. for those of them that can be locally sourced. Of course, there are some materials that you still have to import. We are not saying sustainability doesn't mean you should not meet your present economic needs. No, meet your present economic needs, but be aware of the impact on the future and put in strategies to cater for wastages. Of course, benefits of sustainable architecture, energy efficiency, it increases your property value and marketability. In fact, most organizations or developers that certify their building as green increase their sales rates. If they were selling for 140 million before, by the time they make it green, they increase it to 300 million. So it's a win-win for the marketer and for the buyer of that property too. The cost of operating the building automatically also reduces for you, because in a contemporary normal building, I'm assuming you spend, let's take for example, you spend say 100,000 every month to cool or heat your space. I mean, if you go to London, you know how much pounds they spend on cooling or heating, especially during the cold period, right? So if you are in a building that has been designed with efficient efficient technology, sustainable materials, well insulated, and all of these features, you'd spend less to cool the space, because the light will only come on when you need to, when you are in the space. The motion sensor are already integrated into the space. So you are not on and leaving your lights across the building. I remember my mom usually those days, she would say, switch off the light because of the bill, because of at the end of the month, they bring the NEPA bill, they say, oh my goodness, how are they going to pay for NEPA bill? So when your building is automated to the level that it is, the light only comes on when, you know, motion is sensed or heat is sensed in that space. It cuts down the cost of putting on that light for the whole day, 24 hours. The same applies to cooling. When your cooling system is automated such that it absorbs it measures the volume of CO2 in the space and automatically only provides cooling when CO2 is high. CO2 means there are a lot of people in this place that are breathing out CO2. So they have CO2 sensors integrated in HVAC units in the HVAC industry these days. So that's just to sort of introduce higher level of efficiency to reduce energy. Of course, we know that the cooling system, it contributes about 70% of your energy costs, right? So if you can be more efficient with how you manage your cooling system, you automatically cut down on your power costs. Of course, environmental job creation, reduction in long-term costs, longevity, reduced carbon footprint, and the likes. That's for the environmental benefits. Improvement in productivity of inhabitants, conservation and restoration of natural resources. I mean, there are requirements, there are standards to achieve a green building, right? We have the US standard, we have the German standard. The German standard insists that a percentage of your external area must be converted to a landscape area. That means there must be plants surrounding you. What that does is that if there's any form of generation, smoke, maybe your diesel or exhaust from your diesel, the plants are there to, you know, sequestrate your carbon sequestration, right? And roof, which bears the brunt of solar power, can either be converted to a rooftop garden, or you install solar panels to efficiently use the surface of the roof rather than just absorbing heat and increasing your cooling cost. In fact, with the garden, the temperature below the roof automatically reduces, because you know that the plants absorb all of the sun's heat and light, right? And by the time the soil is cool, automatically the weather below the roof is cool and heat is transferred automatically. So that's how energy cost is reduced. Of course, efficient design, we've touched on orientation, we've touched on insulation, we've touched on solar panels, use of recyclable materials, eco-friendly paints and finishes, water conservation. Of course, your fittings, plumbing fittings have to be efficient fittings. What is the flow rate of your taps? Do you need to turn on the tap every time that, you know, most times The perfect example is when you are brushing your teeth every morning. Most of us subconsciously, because running water has a way of pacifying and calming us, we just let the water run and increase our energy cost, because you know that you need power to run the pump that is providing water to you. So the lesser water you consume, the lesser energy you also consume, the lesser your emissions from diesel, and the lesser your cost to power the building. So low flow fixtures, low flow faucets, rainwater harvesting, waste recycling, sewage waste repurposing, collecting black and gray water. Gray water is the water that comes from your wash hand basin, that goes into the septic tank. Black water is the fecal waste. Collecting it and then repurposing the fecal waste. We have a building here in Lagos that actually does that. It collects and then sort of filters the solid waste, dries it and bags it, and then the liquid waste is then treated. And the water that is treated from the liquid waste is not sent back for use, but rather is used for gardening and washing of cars and for domestic activities. So the list is endless. There's different strategies. There are different strategies and different innovations, different technologies that are being integrated into designs these days to ensure that you convert your building from a normal building and reduce its carbon footprint, typically decarbonizing the building. So here are a couple of green building certifications. We have LEED, we have WELL, we have EDGE, we have True. True is a zero waste certification, and the list goes on. We have SITE, we have Park Smart. Okay, here are a couple of case studies here in Nigeria of green buildings. We have Alliance Place, Lekki Pearl Estates, we have MISA Building, we have Greenwich Housing, we have Peridot. The list is, I'm sorry, I was hoping we'll touch on a few features of these buildings that make them green building, but because of our time, I just have 1 minute left. Would definitely send you, this is Heritage Place. It's a completely green building, recycles, collects rainwater, recycles it and uses within the building. And yes, we have also one in USA. The list is endless. I'm going to send this deck so that we can all go through it. And if you have questions, you can shoot it to me. Maybe after this training, I'll be happy to help. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you had a wonderful time.
Oh, yes, more than a wonderful time. We really had an amazing time with you this evening. Thank you so much. It's as if you had a combination of an architect with estate manager with, I don't know how to just gather all the together. In fact, you really did justice to the topic, and of course, the participant has actually shown their appreciation in the chat box. Yes, a lot of them they have been commenting. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, and it's a great one. So yes, let's keep it coming. Thank you, ma'am. The great one. It was a great time. Yes. So thank you so much for your time. So dear participant, let's have some questions from you. If you have question, this is time to ask your question. So do well to drop your question in the chat and we'll definitely pick it from there. Yes, I can see Abisola saying very insightful. Thank you. So interesting. So yes, the comments are there. So this is so much amazing. That's from another participant. Of course, our facilitator has promised that we will definitely get the slide. So do be at rest. The slide will be sent across. So if you have a question, let's do it to send it. Ojodale is saying, you have done great justice to the topic. The rest is an assignment for us. Yes, so dear participants, go home and do your assignments. It's time to start constructing sustainable building, green building. Yeah. Nice one. Yes. So I'm still waiting in case we have questions. Let's do it to drop the question. Yes, everybody is just happy. They are dropping a lot of appreciation message for you on YouTube currently. And from AIIDEV Africa, we're also saying thank you for doing a whole lot of justice to the topic. Okay, I think I cited one. I did not understand the heat and cold stuff she talked about in a building. So that's from Nkeiru. I did not understand the heat and the cold stuff she talked about in the building. So, man, you might want to have maybe a line or two to that expression.
Okay, that's the heat and cold. I didn't get the question.
Possibly the person is trying to get additional knowledge about what you mean by heat and cold in the building. That is, maybe when there is heat in the building and cold in the building, when you are trying to balance the building temperature. So maybe that's what.
Okay, it's majorly a conversation of thermal comfort, right? It's a conversation of thermal comfort. If your building is very well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello, we can hear you. Hello? Are you there? We can't ask you. We can't hear you, man. I think you are muted. We can actually see you, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So what I was saying is, there's a reverb somewhere. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Okay, so to answer her question, it's a conversation of thermal comfort, right? If you are located in a cold region, excuse me, for our participants that are in, say, US or UK or in a cold region, what you need within your shelter is heat. The way we have cooling system in Africa, that's not the way they have cooling system, at the global north. They have heating system. So HVAC means heating, ventilation, and cooling system, right? So it's either you are heating your space or you are cooling your space to achieve the desired thermal comfort. So if you need to cool your space, it's either you use the mechanical cooling, which is the AC. Maybe I should use that word. You use mechanical cooling, which is your AC, your split unit, your chiller system, or your VRF system, your standing unit, whichever form of cooling that you are using to cool your space. And why are you cooling your space? Because you want to feel, your skin needs to feel okay. It needs that comfort. So if the room is too cold, you would not stay in the room, right? Because you feel feverish and you feel cold. And if the room is also too hot, you look for some form of cooling. So buildings are to provide shelter. Part of providing shelter is ensuring that the people who use the building and their well-being and thermal comfort is catered for. And that's where the conversation of powering your AC systems and all, because you need energy to power those systems. And whatever source of energy, most times in this part of the world, are powered by non-renewable energy, which is fossil fuel, petrol and diesel and the likes. You can count and handpick buildings that are completely dependent on solar or renewable energy. I know Lagos Business School is transitioning from depending on diesel fuel and diesel generators to solar. They have the whole Pan-African building powered by solar. And it didn't just start with solar. They were previously on generator. They understood their carbon footprint and they wanted to make a change and reduce their carbon emissions as an organization, right? So they decided to transition from using generators and selected certain components of the building. Because of the cost of the solar system, it's a bit expensive to acquire. It requires huge capital, investment, especially if you require AC to power a whole university. It's cheaper when you just need to power a sitting room and a 3-bedroom flat or a single housing unit. But to power a whole estate, you probably will need a solar farm, a mini solar farm, right? So, and it's quite expensive to import this, innovation, sustainability innovation. So, which is why some people prefer to sort of use a hybrid system where you have both solar and generator, but lesser dependency on the generators. Maybe they just put only the lightings and some few equipment powered by the generator, and then they put the AC, which are heavy equipment, on solar, or vice versa. Sterling Bank also did something similar. They changed all of their facades, right, to solar panels. So what that means is that the exterior of this, because it is space, the exterior of the building as a space is not being wasted. It's being harnessed, right, to collect energy and transform the energy to usable power, light, AC, power your laptop, power your fan and your AC, your fridges and all of that. So those are innovative ways of completely depending on power that has a higher global warming potential, which is fossil fuel and diesel fuel, to transition into solar. So to answer your question on cooling and heating, it's all about thermal comfort, right? When you build your house, you most likely will put an AC in your house. I'm so sure of that. And to power your AC, you need either your generator or solar. So the green building will tell you, go the solar route, because there is no byproduct from solar, except for after the end of life of the solar panels. What happens to the battery? Do you recycle the lithium batteries, or what do you do with it? And the solar panels, do you disintegrate it and repurpose it? Most people say that solar batteries are ending up in landfills. Of course, there has to be sensitization. What do we do after we have the solar panels have gotten to their end of life, and then we need to procure a new one? What happens to those materials? Are they sent into the landfills to go and introduce lead and so many heavy metals into our soil and cause all forms of cancer? Or are they repurposed and reused? And you can see that the conversation of circularity and resource efficiency continues to go on. So sustainability is all about continuous improvement. What can we do better? We're doing it good, okay, but how can we improve? How can we continue to make things better? How can we continue to cater for our current needs without hampering the ability of our children, our great-grandchildren, our children's children to meet their own shelter needs, feeding needs, and clothing needs? There's a video that has been circulating social media of a man that will wear like 3 or 4 caps and a lady at the gym, and you see about 6 or 4 or 7 shoes behind the lady. I don't know if has anybody seen that video? They have been circulating social media. I don't know if anybody has seen that video. That video typically depicts the waste footprint of every individual. And that's where the conversation of sustainable fashion comes in. Because as Olufemi, let's use you as our conversation today. I'm sure you have so many of this, your pillar. that you are wearing today. You have maybe 5 or 6 or 10 in your house. Of course, there's nothing terrible about it. But what happens after you are done wearing those fillers? Where do they end up? Are they reused to maybe create a bag or a shoe, or maybe even used to create a rug, right? Or are they just packed and so sent to Loma and then they end up in landfill and create a problem for us? So we need to begin to have those conversations and put in those plans. And I would say finally that conversations around sustainability in this part of the world is mostly talk and less do. It's mostly talk and less action. We need to transition from just, talking and saying this is possible, to taking actions. If you are an architect, how can I design green? How can I integrate sustainability in whatever I do? Sustainability is like quality. You can integrate it into any field, any industry, any aspect. Every industry has a role to play in sustainability. It's a business model, it's a business strategy. Everything that you have to buy and sell, both products and services, require the ESG framework balance, right? I hope I haven't exceeded the question. All right.
Even from your answer, you have answered a lot of questions on board. So thank you so much. Just for the sake of emphasis, you have actually answered this question, but for the sake of emphasis, you can just put one or two statements to it. This is coming from Zainab. Most of the building occupied by average income earners cannot in any way be described as green. How can landlord or intending home owners be sensitized about the importance of green building? So you have answered this, but just for the sake of emphasis, can you just put one or two comments on that? Hello, ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I was asking, the question is how we can sensitize landowners and developers to build green. Is that the question?
Yeah, how we can sensitize intending landowners and current landlords on the importance of green building.
It starts with advocacy. So part of taking action is also advocacy. It's also ringing the bell and sounding the alarm, right? Most people in the ESG space focus more on sustainability reporting, and that is the most industries that are held accountable by the government is either the manufacturing sector, or maybe the banking sector because of tax, because the government wants to collect some form of levies. At the end of the day, we are pursuing sustainability, but most people involved in it are looking at the financial bottom line, not necessarily the environmental bottom line. So a lot of sensitization needs to go back to people understanding that as we are balancing out and making our money and building buildings, right? By the grace of God, the hope is that, you have your own structure. You become a landlord. Let's say the way you say it in Nigeria. The hope is that you become a landlord, you build your estates, and you lease your space and you make good money. But at the point of making a decision to buy a land and make and erect a structure there, you need to, at that point, start thinking about how long that investment would last you. And integrating sustainability proactively into your objective, part of the objective for doing that development, would help you save a lot. So the idea is for architects and individuals and professionals in the building industry to continue to sound the alarm and say, you know what, I'm a builder, I'm a member of the Building Association or Institution of Nigeria. We need to have conversations around materials. How can we create more sustainable materials that are locally available and that can be procured locally and can be cheaper. And you see a lot of research and innovation come out of that conversation of sustainability. You're an architect. How can I build green? What are the concepts of green design that I can integrate into my design? This client wants, a 5-story duplex luxury building. How can I start the conversation around sustainability or sustainable building and say, you know what, you can achieve this same design with less material if we consider this option, and that option. Introducing and sensing. So sensitization doesn't necessarily have to be you taking a speaker or a microphone and going around the street. Some of those activities are beautiful, but I have experienced that they have less impact. But when you engage individuals one-on-one and you have the expertise, you have the professional influence, you know that you can actually make an influence and make a recommendation that, you know what, instead of building this way, these are the options that you have. And you tell them the cost-benefit analysis, the cost, reduction, and the long-term throughout the lifespan of the project, while the building is in operation for 50 or 100 years, how much less power they will need to power the building if they decide to build green. All of these conversations around the value of green building can be had by professionals in the green building. And if you're not even a professional in the green building, like I said before, you're going to build one day, right? You're going to be in a position where you'll be able to give an advice or make a recommendation. That is where advocacy starts from, and begin to sensitize people on all that you've heard is possible today. So that will be my answer to that question.
Thank you so much for that beautiful answer. So just one more before you go, just last one. This question is coming from Oluwabanke. So the question is, are our natural resources enough to go around for green building? Are our natural resources enough to go around for green building? So that's just the last question for tonight.
Wow, amazing question. I would say that natural resource, like we mentioned earlier, sorry, I have to change my camera because I noticed that it's a different source for audio and sort of conflicting. Okay, so for natural resources are finite, right? They do not exist forever. There is no billion tons reserve of limestone under the ground. There's no billion ton reserve of iron ore in Enugu. No, there is not billion tons of fossil fuel reserve in Niger Delta. I'm sorry that I'm using Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, that's where I come from. Apologies to the individuals, that are non-Nigerians. I wish I had examples to use, from where you come from, but I hope you understand, right? So natural resources are scarce. That is the whole idea of economy. Economy is being able to articulately deploy resources efficiently. It's about efficient use of resources. So green building is focused on building efficiently, right? Instead of using 50 bags of cement, how can I build that same structure with just 10 bags of cement? Is there an innovation like that? Explore it. There is. Okay, instead of importing Italian tiles, buying those Italian tiles at maybe $1,000 per square meter, right? What option do I have locally? So there is no, what's the word now? Infinite reserve of resources anywhere, and not just in the building industry, in every industry. Food industry, clothing industry, you would see now that they're already using plastic to make clothes. Why is that? How many of you have worn accurate cotton? Cotton. You know how cotton is being produced from plants. It is very expensive. Silk costs thousands of dollars because of you have to now nurture and nurse some type of termite that will produce steel. It is expensive. People are looking for alternatives. And in the bid to look for alternatives, we are creating more problems by increasing the waste footprint across industries. So sustainability does not say you shouldn't build house. It says, how can I reduce wastage why I am building and why I am operating, right? How can I ensure that I am able to deliver the same quality in terms of building structure while consuming less raw material? In fact, it talks about completely repurposing, not having to go back to raw materials, but identify materials that can be upcycled and recycled or reproduced so that you can then deploy that. So to answer your question, there's no reserve anywhere across industries. We need to wake up and understand that if we don't take action now, we'll run out of all of these resources. I've been hearing rumors about, I don't think I should say that on here, but natural resources that are being depleted on a daily basis, right? We talk about water reserve in underground water, people not having access to water, even in Lagos State, people on the island lacking water because the reserve that used to be there 20, 50 years ago has dried up, right? So that's the answer to your question. I hope I answered your question well.
Yes, you did, and we are so glad to have you this evening. Yes, we continue to appreciate you because each time you speak, it's a whole lot of knowledge. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for your time, and you really explained carefully so that we can understand all the concept behind this topic. And from the participants' comments, of course, they are glad to be part of today's section, and we are so grateful for all we have learned from you. Truth be told, everyone has gained value from you today. Indeed, we have been impacted. We say a very big thank you to you, and we wish you more productivity in all your endeavors. Thank you so much. We believe you have really spent a lot of time with us, and we won't want to delay you any further. You still have other engagements you might still want to attend to. So on behalf of Teach4SDG team and the entire AIIDEV Africa and all the participants, we are saying a very big thank you for facilitating tonight's section and for the knowledge shared. We hope to see you some other time.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I always love to be around youths like myself, youths who are making impact, youths who are investing in capacity building and, positioning themselves to be the change for tomorrow. I'm excited to be here. Dr. MKO also sent his very warm greeting to everyone on the group. He's like was said earlier, he had a couple of engagements and couldn't make it today, and we definitely would, hopefully you can invite him for another event. Hopefully he'll be available to comment. But thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful. Feel free to reach out to us anytime with questions. We'll be happy to support AIIDEV. I mean, I can join your group if I know your LinkedIn page or your platforms. I can be a part of what the impact you are making. It's really exciting to see that this is happening.
Yeah, thank you so much for that wonderful feedback. We are glad and we'll definitely get across. Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Do have a
good time and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Yeah. So to all our participants, indeed, I believe you have gained a lot of knowledge here this evening. And of course, you are not going back the same way you came. Now, if you want to build, I know you have a lot of factors to consider. Yes. So we are glad to have you on this call. Attendance link has been sent to everyone via the charts. Kindly fill the form appropriately. You have 12 hours. Mind you, while filling the form, you have to make your post either on LinkedIn or on Facebook about what you have gained today. Kindly do that. It has also been shared. The attendance link has been shared in your mail, so you can get that in your mail too. So while posting what you have learned in today's section, try to attach the hashtag Teach4SDG impact, Teach for SDG impact so that we can get to engage more. So on behalf of the entire Teach4SDG team and AIIDEV Africa as a whole, we are saying thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you some other time. Don't forget, it continues next week, same time, same venue, and we definitely get across to you via your mails. Keep your tab on your mail and keep living sustainably and do well to practice all what you have learned this evening. On this note, we say bye-bye and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.